we have the pleasure in welcoming Chris McSwain onto Hoopsology. He is the CEO of Top Flight Elite Basketball. How's it going, Chris?
I'm doing great, Justin. Thank you for having me, as well as Matt. Appreciate you guys.
You're welcome. So, Chris, thanks for reaching out. And this is something that I've been excited just to talk to you as a potential guest about because I've been relatively curious about the subject of AAU basketball in general because it's a world that I see from an outsider just because I don't have any kids and I never played on that level except just playing for fun. So it's always something that I wanted to really dig into and just ask an expert in that field specific questions. So first, Chris, can you just go over how you created Top Flight Elite AAU basketball and why do you think there is a need for AAU in general within the basketball world?
Yeah, so I'll first start off by saying I think, sometimes AAU gets a negative connotation when it's associated with basketball. And it is a necessary evil. And I'll go into a little bit greater detail with that, Justin and Matt. But how we first started, I started coaching high school basketball in 2004. From there, I was just, JV head coach and a varsity assistant, and you're just kind of trying to figure things out. I started helping out with a club basketball program locally in the area, and I just saw a need in our particular area for really teaching the fundamentals, the basics, fundamental skill development. And so, my buddies and I would train some of these young kids, and these kids wanted an outlet and a team to be able to play and participate on a team. So we decided to create Top Flight Elite. And from there, we started very small. Top Flight started with just training kids, and then we had a couple of camps and clinics. And from there, it transpired to one team. One team turned into three teams. Three teams quickly turned into 12 teams. 12 teams turned to 20 teams. And then, up until last year, we had 40 teams right before COVID hit. And kind of derailed the season. So, it's kind of been a long process over the last 7 years, but we've had some really fantastic coaches involved with it. We've had some really high-level players to come through our program, and the parents that have supported us over the years have been extremely paramount in us really growing this thing to where it has been. But to get to your second part of your question, why is it necessary? I think there are a certain number of programs that really do things the right way. And just like any walk of life, there's good and bad, whether that be coaches, there's good and bad coaches, whether that be politicians, there's good and bad politicians, whether that be podcast hosts like yourself. You guys are great, but obviously there may be some bad ones out there too.
Sure.
So, the negative connotation comes from those bad, and not everything is bad. There are a lot of great programs specifically in our area that do it the right way. We try to do it the right way. And our only goal, we have two of them. One is, did the kids have fun in our program? That is extremely important because that's why kids sign up for sports, because it's a fun outlet for them to have. And secondly, would be, did they learn about basketball? But along those lines, more importantly, because of the things that they learned with basketball, will that help them translate to a better individual off the court? And that's been extremely paramount for our program to instill those values every single team, whether you're with us for 1 year or the entire duration of your youth basketball career. We want to make sure those ideals are always paramount. And I think people, or older people, adults like us, when they start to think that it's because of them this kid is going to this Division I school or college or what have you, that's where this generation of clout chasing and things like that have really changed the dynamics. And I think that's where the negative connotation comes, because if done the correct way, AAU basketball could be a great outlet for kids to have fun. It could also teach them values that they're going to use the rest of their life. And ultimately, if they want to pursue their career beyond high school, AAU is a great benchmark to do that.
And Chris, do you think that is the best path through AAU basketball? If you have a, I guess, child or young adult looking to take their career to the next level, whether that's college, or professionally, whether it's internationally or in the states, just because traditionally it has been just through high school. So how has, I guess, AAU changed the dynamic in trying to get recruited, trying to get the right eyeballs on that person that wants to pursue basketball past just high school?
There's many different paths you can take to get to where you want to get to. AAU basketball is thriving because in the spring and summer, that is where all these high level tournaments are happening. So obviously pre-COVID, but every single year there would be national tournaments, and a lot of them ended up in Vegas the final week of summer basketball. And so you would have all of the coaches in one area. And so that made it easy for coaches to get around and see multiple players. Where some of these really high level tournaments, what happens is you can house all of these really high level teams in one place so all the coaches can congregate and watch, whether that be the ESPN top 150 or kids that are a little bit lower. And that is kind of where this model has come from. Because if you are a high school and you're a really good high school player, the only way to get seen for the most part is now considered with your club affiliation or playing on the AAU circuit. If you don't, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to be seen because all the coaches are coaching during that time that you're playing high school basketball. And so you have to be a really high level recruit in order for you to have the opportunity for coaches to come see your high school. Now, if they see you on the circuit or you're playing against one of these teams and they say, hey, that kid is really good, now they can kind of put you on the list and then follow up. And then, they might come to their high school open gyms, usually in September, before their season kind of kicks off, and they can kind of recruit them differently. But AAU, I think, is a necessity at this point. It is not the only way. Almost all the kids that end up playing in college play AAU basketball. That's not to say that all of them do, but a high majority do. And then if you can always go the prep school route too, so that's been popular a lot. And, you even now see kids that are skipping the college ranks altogether and playing professionally. You think about, LaMelo Ball, who's now with the Charlotte Hornets, or Jalen Green, who will be a top 5 pick coming up. He plays in the D League, or G League, excuse me, the old D League, but he plays in the G League. And I've seen that kid because he's not too far from our area, but he went to a regular high school. He was going to go to any college he wanted to. He decided to finish his career at a prep school because he could play at a national level, and he could have gone any school he wanted to. Every college would have wanted him to play, but he decided to bet on himself and get paid as well, a pretty substantial salary for a young kid, instead of making this money for the university. And now he's playing in the G League. He'll be a top 5 pick next year.
Awesome. Chris, thank you for that wonderful explanation first and foremost. Can you, just for the sake of clarification and being really clear about all of this, AAU is just a mechanism that provides a structure if you determine, like you mentioned, you had a community in need of more basketball, or infrastructure to get more kids the ability to play, to learn these skills, to have fun, to be seen. So AAU is just really providing the infrastructure, correct? And it can be very, very different in every single community.
Definitely. The majority of the kids that play AAU basketball will never play college basketball. That's a misnomer. So there are so many benefits to actually playing AAU basketball, organized basketball with your community, the kids that you grew up with, the kids that you go to school with. And you're going to always remember those trips. If you're going on a travel trip and you're staying in hotels and, you're staying up late and going swimming in the swimming pool and eating, together at these team dinners, that's really what the AAU that I'm talking about. Hardly any of our kids. Well, a lot of our kids go on to college, but it's a small percentage compared to all the ones that come through the program. So you're completely right, Matt. It is just a vehicle for kids to utilize, and if done with the correct program, with the right structure, it could be a really great experience. The negative experiences you might see, because there's a lot of money involved, especially with the shoe brand teams. Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, they all have their summer circuits. And a lot of those teams are fully sponsored. And those teams are extremely, extremely attractive to individuals that want to play in college or eventually wanted to play in the pros. So that's kind of where, the AAU kind of gets its name, and you're completely right. It's a separate thing. The majority of these kids aren't playing in college. They're not playing in the pros. They're just playing with their community and the friends that they have growing up. And for the most part, it's a great experience for people. It's when adults kind of get in the way of that experience. And that's, that for me, being a high school coach myself too, I think that the level of play in AAU basketball is not the same. It's definitely a different game. When you're in a high school structured environment, you practice every single day. At least 5 or 6 days a week with the off day on Sunday. You're scouting these teams in your league and in your area. In AAU basketball, you're playing 5, 6, 7, even possibly 8 games in a 3-day or 2-day span. So there's no way that the same structure can be in place. So, does AAU play too many games? Possibly. I mean, I don't think kids should be playing 100 games a year if you're including AAU, 50 games in the summer and 30 games in high school. Like, that's a lot. So we try to get the miles off the kid as much as possible. But like I said earlier, it's a necessary evil, but if done the correct way, which there's so many programs that are, I think it could be a valuable and great experience for people.
Awesome.
Chris, I wanted to ask you, in terms of, I guess, the media and specifically former players, you mentioned earlier the kind of the negative perception of AAU. And I think, at least for me, I kind of get that watching Inside the NBA. They always bring it up in terms of a kind of a negative connotation in terms of, hey, these players know each other before they get into the pros. The killer instinct is gone. They're buddy, like that kind of cutthroat mentality when I was playing is gone because of AAU. Can you kind of dispel that, that, I guess, myth? And why do you think they think that? I think Kitty Smith, I believe, has an AAU team affiliated, I think, with the Mamba Academy, I believe. I guess besides that, why do you think they go so hard against AAU? And that seems not to be the case at all.
It's as I get older, the stories that I tell get better, so I think that's the same way for them. They think that, and I hope I'm never this get off your lawn type of guy.
Sure.
Hopefully I always have this, this open-minded mindset. Basketball is more skilled than it's ever been. I think the game has developed to just elite stature. It's so popular amongst the youth right now. It's football is obviously the most watched sport. Baseball used to be America's pastime, but I'm a firm believer that basketball is now America's pastime.
Agreed.
And a lot of it is coming from the AAU ranks. You talked about Kenny Smith. He does have a program out based in LA called Aim High Basketball, if it's still named that. A lot of people in the industry, Matt Barnes has a team with his two twins on it. Kendrick Perkins has a team with his son on it. Zach Randolph, you name it. All of these guys have teams. Tyler Johnson, who plays for the Brooklyn Nets, his brothers played in our program. They grew up with us, and he sponsored our teams for 2 years under Tyler Johnson Elite. So these guys are doing all that and giving back. But they also want the best players on those teams too. If my son is playing, I want him to play with and against the best. So they're trying to attract the best players on those teams to play with, whether the team that they coach or their sons or daughters or what have you. I had on my podcast, one of Kobe Bryant's assistant coaches, and he said they had them going 5 days a week in the summer.
Wow.
5 days a week to get everything they can, skill development wise, mentally, physically, all of that. And it's just one of those things. But going back to your original question, I think just, you have nostalgia. I think that's the one thing that makes people think their era is always better. And I've never been one of those people, but when I look back on it, and some of the times I start telling stories, you think that it was better. But, in my opinion, basketball is never better than it's ever, and this is better than it's ever been, whether that be, in the 90s, 2000s, back in the 70s. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is basically Giannis. If you think about that, maybe a few inches height a few inches differently on their height, but that's basically Giannis. And LeBron is, a power forward like Karl Malone. They're the same size, and what LeBron is able to do, and all these people are able to do. I just think the game has changed, and you have to have an open mind. But everybody's entitled to their opinion, and if they want to tell their stories the way they see it, I have no idea. I don't have any problems with it. I actually love and enjoy that type of talk and that rhetoric because it makes for good TV.
Absolutely. Hey, Chris, piggybacking off that point, for you as a coach with these young players coming in, how do you coach the fundamentals now, maybe any differently from when you started, now that the three-point shot continues to evolve and be a more and more prevalent part of the game? You certainly have, speaking of that old nostalgia, a lot of people will say, man, I really miss the Patrick Ewing, the bigs inside, that kind of thing. But I'm sure as someone developing talent, you don't want to limit, a potential five who's going to play in college. You don't want to limit them developing a better shot or things like that in the modern NBA. So how do you kind of balance that, and how do you direct your coaching now, or how has that changed over time now that the three-point shot is even just since 2010, the league is looking a lot different?
Right. I think it was Jalen Rose that said it, and I follow a bunch of his stuff that he does. He talked about positions were only provided for the layman to be able to understand. Mm-hmm. And, he was a tall point guard, but he's listed as a small forward, but he was a point guard. He played point guard for the Fab Five. He played point guard in Indiana when Reggie Miller and them were together and things like that. So, positionless basketball is kind of where everything has been headed. You'll see in the NBA 5-out situations all of the time. They now want their bigs, to be stretch fours, or now they call them stretch fives because they want to be able to stretch the defense out. I think the innovation to the three-point line that you mentioned is a game changer, where you have to pick up Steph Curry and Damian Lillard as soon as they cross half court. It's just amazing how the game is developed. You talk about Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets creating this whole system based on small ball. The Warriors' death lineup, everybody was under the height of 6'7" or 6'8" or something, somewhere around that. And then, people are becoming really proficient at shooting the three. Steph Curry, well, before I get to Steph, everybody marvels at when people shoot 40% or more from three. And Steph Curry's done it every single year of his career. Not just this year, every single year.
Insane.
He is not only the lead guard, he is the vanguard of the new school of basketball. So back to the popularity, and I'll get to your point, Matt, at the very end. This is where a kid that is, 6'2", 6'3", could feel like, hey, I can be that. They're never, ever going to be Giannis or LeBron. That's just a very rare thing for somebody to have that size, that athleticism, that level of skill. But people can hope to be Steph Curry, and because of his size, they can really identify with him. And so how I've changed my coaching over the years, when we used to practice, it was always a block practice. We would have, layups. We'd do that for 10 minutes with no contest. And it ended up being like a dunk line when I was in high school, right? And then you go into maybe some full court 3-on-2, 2-on-1. It was all block. And, that's how a lot of us were ingrained when we were growing up playing the game. But what's happened is, the game is extremely changing. And you have to be able to adapt like that as the game is evolving. And so, there's this guy named Chris Oliver. He runs the basketball podcast, which is a fabulous podcast, which talks technical and tactical basketball. But he really gets you to think what actually happens in the game. Okay, so you'll see a trainer, and trainer is probably another subject that you guys can talk about, but doing all these different combo moves for kids that are 10 years old that can't even really dribble with their left hand, but yet they're teaching them in and out, teaching a Euro step and all of this. So I said that to say this: simplicity is extremely important when teaching the game. Jump stops, fundamentals, all of Steph's like real highlight real stuff. Like if he crosses somebody, it's over. It's because it is so detailed, and his step backs are so detailed, but he makes the defender look silly, but it's really a basic move. So for me, I teach 3 dribbles or less. If you can't really do it in 3 dribbles, you're not going to really do that in a game. Nobody's going to be James Harden. He's elite at what he does. He's one of the best to ever play in a one-on-one space. But for kids, can you catch and shoot? I think shooting is going to be the most important. What are the fundamentals of the shot? Starting from the ground up and really focusing on that form that you must have in order to be a prolific shooter. Some kids think they can shoot, but can they really? Well, let's calculate your shots. What are you shooting when nobody's guarding you? If you're shooting about 70% when nobody's guarding you, you'll have a really good opportunity to shoot a high percentage in the game, which is what you're trying to do. A long answer to your question, Matt, is keeping it very simple. Teaching the fundamentals, jump stops, really able to handle the ball, pass the ball with both hands, post entry passes, those sort of things. And the last thing I would say is to the players, play to your strengths, and coaches, coach to your personnel, not a system. And that will allow you to be that positionless, where it's not necessarily a position, but actually the skill of basketball.
Awesome. Great answer.
Chris, can you discuss what role YouTube has had on AAU basketball in terms of sites like Ball is Life and other kind of YouTube channels that I see, like 7th graders, 8th graders, 6th graders showing their games up on YouTube, and they catch fire in terms of being viral. How that's changed things, because pre-social media, normally buzz would occur through maybe high school prospects when they're a junior or senior, but now we're seeing them on like a middle school level. Is that like a lot of unfair pressure on these kids that they're just trying to still be a kid and develop when, they have this pressure of, social media? I mean, we all know how toxic social media can be, and now they have to deal with, the positives of being, possibly famous, but the negatives of just being, the pressure of being like a professional athlete when they're in middle school. So how do you feel about just this new wave of just digital media covering kind of these prep prospects?
Yeah, that's a really tough question, Justin. And I don't really know the right answer. I am a proponent of kids, showcasing their talents, gifts, and abilities. I do think that is great when it is monetized for the gain of adults. That's where I think the line needs to be drawn. Social media is with us. It's not going anywhere. Sure. So instead of poo-pooing on social media, for me, I like to, see how you can use it to your benefit. Sure. Ball is Life has been a great platform for so many. We would have never seen Zion Williamson or LaMelo Ball when they, if this was 10 or 15 years ago, so it's allowed players like that to be really showcased. I don't mind if a young kid wants to put their highlights on YouTube. I think it's a great thing. And hey, they can send it with their friends. Most of the kids that put their stuff on there are not going to be famous. So we're probably talking about the top 2%. But I would say in answering your question, Justin, if it's the top 2%, I hope they have a really good family structure in place, because you have to be able to take the good with the bad when you're in a public spotlight. Just think about any politician or any athlete. Like, they're going to have a lot of eyeballs on them, and they can have so many people that are, fans of theirs, but they may get one negative tweet or one negative comment on Instagram or YouTube, and that can really derail their confidence. So I would say, for parents, most importantly, really pump your kids up to not, whether it is positive or negative, don't get too excited one way or the other. One of my favorite books is "It Takes What It Takes" by Trevor Moawad, and he's Russell Wilson's brain trainer. And the talk is really about neutral thinking and neutralizing your thoughts. The good doesn't matter, the bad doesn't matter. We're somewhere in between, and I think that's the best way to go about it. But it definitely is interesting, and for kids growing up, the social media can be a gift and a curse.
Yeah. And Chris, I wanted to also ask you personally, how has it been, coaching through the pandemic? I mean, has it been more challenging? Have you had to really adjust to your strategies in terms of maybe having more Zoom practices? What have you done to kind of adjust to this new kind of paradigm shift? And once, we get out of this pandemic, do you think there'll be a transitional period for the athletes under you to adjust to life going back to normal?
Yeah. During this COVID, I think it's taught everybody one thing, and that is you have to be very, very flexible and fluid with your planning, with just thinking for the forecasting for the future. You have to be very specific in how you are able to adapt and change. So for us with the high school team, our last game the next day is when everything got shut down. So that was really interesting to kind of go through that. We were hearing some rumblings about COVID, and we were in our state playoff game, and that was the last game that took place in California that day. There was no more games that were being played after that. So from there, we actually had a documentary that was done on our team, our high school team last year, by Get Sports Focus. And so early on in the pandemic, we would kind of, just like The Last Dance, we would watch our documentary together as a team on Zoom. So that was one way that we kind of got together. The other thing is, when the social justice stuff that was going on in May, we would have weekly meetings to talk about that. But in particular, how we changed, we started going digitally. So, there's a great app called Home Court. And what the app allows you to do is input workouts, and the kids can do them on their phone. So I can put whatever workout we want to do through the app, and the kids actually do it, and then it'll report back. So I can see every single shot that kid took, however they can do the dribbling workouts, and however long that took. So you can follow along. And so we tried to make it a game, just like we have a summer program starting every June. We work out, we lift in our human performance center at the school, and then we have practice 2 hours a week, or 2 hours a day. So we would be 3 hours. So 1 hour working out and 2 hours in the gym. So we just decided to flip that. I got gift cards for the winners. And so we created a whole point system, and we were going to be in teams of 4. So we had 12 kids on our team. And so, team 1, team 2, team 3, there's 6 points that you can get for the day. If you do the HIIT workout on YouTube and record it and send it to your team captain, which was our assistant coaches, they would get 1 point for that. Okay. And then if you did the ball handling workout, you get 1 point for that. And everything was tracked and scaled. If you did the shooting workout, you get 2 points for that. And then if you made an extra 150 threes, which would give you 500 makes for the day, then you would get 2 extra points. So we had a 5-point scale, and you can get 5 points every single day. And then there would be bonus rounds where you're going to get an extra point if we did like a scavenger hunt on Zoom. So we'll be in Zoom. All right, go to your kitchen and get a spatula. First person to get it, here's a spatula. You get a point for your team. Or doing trivia, things like that. Just anything to stay engaged really has been extremely important for the kids because they're used to being in person. Still, we haven't been able to play a game here in California. Hopefully that will change soon. But we've been trying to adapt with outdoor workouts, or we've been at school since we're a private school, so we've been able to get the kids on campus. So we'll do some shooting in the gym 1 time a week, but we haven't really had any full practices or anything like that, just skill stuff. But it's been difficult. Hats off to the kids for going through this. Adults, we can complain a lot, but the kids rarely complain. And that's the one thing that I've seen throughout this whole COVID, just being able to adapt and make a way where there is no way. I go by the term win, and that means what's important now. What's important now is we don't know when we're going to play, but we are going to prepare like we are going to have a season. If we do have a season, great. If not, you're still going to play club basketball because other states are open and you can travel out there and play. So that's what we've been trying to do during this whole COVID with coaching through the Zoom.
And Chris, I wanted to ask you, because you also coach girls as well. And in terms of women's basketball, I think there was a huge leap forward in terms of the WNBA. And even through this season, seeing Paige Buckers out of UConn really attract a lot of attention, as well as Sabrina Ionescu. How do you see the women's game really transforming as well? Because we mentioned social media also, and from a positive aspect, with Paige in particularly, I mean, she gained a lot of buzz when she was in high school. And so I think now, from a kind of popularity standpoint, we're seeing, I guess, the women's games get a lot of the same buzz as the men in terms of seeing those prospects rise from the prep level to college and to the pros. So do you see that correlating into a increase in women's basketball within in the next couple of years? And do you see your the athletes you coach maybe aspiring to reach that WNBA level, where maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe that wasn't necessarily a, strong path now because of the popularity it is now?
Definitely. I'm a big proponent of the women's game, obviously, as being a women's varsity head basketball coach. I used to coach boys my first 8 years of high school, and then the last 8 years I've been coaching girls. So it's been interesting to see the differences between the two. In my opinion, there aren't that many differences. Kids are going to be kids. You have your, kids that work hard. There's kids that don't work hard. And I just had to, the only thing that I really had to change was just the interpersonal relationships are very, very important when dealing with the girls. But as you can see, Paige and Sabrina and so many more, they're really allowing people to see, wow, these girls are really good at basketball. I'll have my friends, and a lot of them played college sports, come play us, and they're surprised by how good our team is, because they're really skilled, they're good, they're tall. Our team, we have 6 kids over 6 foot. And that is just, you're just seeing the change and the evolution of what women's basketball is, and it's becoming more popular. Before, you would ask a player, hey, who's your favorite player? And they might mention a man, LeBron or Steph Curry or something like that. Now they're saying, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, or Paige or Sabrina, and that's been really cool. One of the best things that I've seen, recently, and this is another tragic reason why it's it's so saddening that Kobe Bryant is no longer here. He was changing the perception for so many male athletes because he was so invested in the women's game, because his daughter was a phenomenal up-and-coming player, and Kobe was around the women's game. That WNBA hoodie that everybody was wearing in the NBA bubble, that's because of Kobe. Kobe was wearing that hoodie a long time ago before it even got popular, with his daughter on the sidelines at these games. And that's where the women's game has shifted. Kyrie, trying to assist the women in, helping facilitate their pay and donating money to the women to the women's game, because, the men get paid so much more than the women, and just seeing the popularity. I know a number of WNBA players. My cousin's a WNBA player for the Indiana Fever. She's been a long time WNBA veteran, so she comes and speaks to our team, things like that. So just seeing the positivity of the women's game. They're so skilled. And, one of the biggest things that really irks me about men in particular, when they talk about the women's game, well, no, the girls aren't athletic or anything like that. Well, it's just a different game. And if you're really a purist about basketball, you watch the women's game, it's just so fundamentally sound. The play is unselfish. It's not like the ball stops with the men. It's just a really fluid game, similar to how the Warriors have played, from 2015 till now, where it's just really fluid. The open player gets the ball. If they have an open shot, they're going to take it, and things like that. So, and I would challenge any man to play a Division I or II or III college player and see if you can keep up, because I highly doubt it. And there's 0.000 chance that you could pick five of your buddies to go play a WNBA group and win. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, no chance on that. Chris, before we let you go, one last question. And we got to ask you about the NBA season so far. What are your overall thoughts? I know a lot of games have been postponed. Recently Anthony Davis got hurt. The big trade in Brooklyn. What do you make of this season, and who do you see as kind of the favorites to be in the NBA Finals?
Man, I love the NBA right now. It's been awesome. If you think about it, it's like a soap opera every single year, whether that be in July when all the free agency starts to happen. Players are moving from team to team. It is like AAU, to our earlier topic, where the guys are picking where they want to go play, and you're seeing the player empowerment era at its fullest. So the NBA has been fantastic. I love watching all the games. The competitive nature, especially with no fans, is really driving the competitive spirit of the athletes. Kyrie the other night trolling LeBron and saying, I don't know if you saw that, but he was saying, you got this guy shooting your free throws. He's your best free throw shooter. It's just truly amazing. And so with the bubble, that was a complete success. Obviously some games have been postponed this year. But as far as the game goes, it's in a really great place. There's so much parity now in the NBA. You lose 2 games, you could drop out of the playoffs, or you win 4 or 5 in a row. Like if the Warriors also lost 2 on the road, but if they would have won those games, they might be in the 4 seed at that point. And so you just never know what's going to happen. Injuries can derail a whole season because the benches aren't as strong as they used to be, because they're so top heavy with the 2 really main stars. And then in Brooklyn, obviously you got 3 main stars. And I'm excited to see how that all works out in Brooklyn. I think, defensively you talk about that, but those guys can score at a high clip. And if they're going to be unselfish, I think they're the favorite in the East, just like Vegas has them. And depending on what, like you mentioned, Anthony Davis, how long is that going to happen? I don't think the Lakers care what seed they get, because if there are no fans, it really doesn't matter. You got 2 of the best 5 players in the NBA if they're healthy. And I want to see how the Clippers are going to bounce back. I think Utah's had a really great season. I mean, the last 20 games, Utah's been fantastic. They're the best team in the league. And you don't want to see the Warriors if Steph gets hot. He can really lead a team. So it'll be interesting. If you had to put my if you had to put me under the flame, I would say I think the LA Clippers are going to come out of the West. The reason being, last year in the bubble, the struggles are well documented with Paul George. I think Kawhi is in a different space. I think the bubble, things that I've been hearing on different podcasts, it really was a struggle for a lot of these guys. And now, if you take that, if they go back into the bubble, I don't know, but if they're in their own homes, I think the LA Clippers will come out of the West because Anthony Davis is a key. The Lakers would have zero chance to win if he's not there. So I would take them, and I would take Brooklyn out of the East. I think in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's going to be Philadelphia and Brooklyn. Brooklyn just has too much star power. You've got a game from KD. You've got a game from Kyrie. You've got a game from James Harden. And then you might get a game from all three of those guys. It's just going to be very, very interesting to see. 72 games is lightning quick. We're almost halfway through the season. And then the play-in is going to be awesome. I want to see Steph. I want to see Dame. I want to see, all these guys. I want to see LaMelo. I want to see all of them in a small little tournament round robin thing where they can try to fight their way into the playoffs. And what a great, spring and summer we're looking forward to as far as NBA goes.
Agreed. Chris, thank you very much for joining the show. Really appreciate it. Please plug where we can find you on social media and what you're up to in the rest of this year.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, Chris __ McSwain, MCSWAIN, and then Top Flight Elite basketball, football. You can follow those on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn. I really love the networking on LinkedIn. So that's been pretty cool. So you can just follow me, Chris McSwain, there. And this year, we've got a lot of really great things in store. Coming back with our AAU basketball seasons. We're getting ready to start tryouts here in March and go from there. But, just looking forward to our AAU basketball season, Valley Christian girls basketball as well. Yeah.
And Chris, you have a podcast as well, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, I have a podcast called Beyond the Buckets. I like conversations like this, meeting, both of you guys for the first time. It's called Beyond the Buckets. I bring on individuals from coaches to entertainers to, educators to health people, you name it. I'm having good conversations with people, and that's been a blast. It's like getting a master class for each one of these people that I'm interviewing, and it's been so influential to me, continuing to try to pour out and give to others. Like before the pandemic and before Kobe passed, I didn't really want to share a whole lot. I wanted to keep all my ideas. But as the pandemic progressed, as well as the untimely death of Kobe Bryant, I was just like, our time can be long here on this earth, but in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty short. So you got to try to do as much as you can, spread as much love as you can out there to the world, because you never know who you're going to impact.
Agreed. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. I think if I can speak for Matt, that we really enjoyed the chat. Hope to have you on again in the near future. Thanks for joining us.
You guys are awesome. I love what you do. I started listening to a bunch of the podcasts that you guys have put together. Extremely professional. Well done. You guys do your great research, and man, I'm so thankful to have this platform to talk on your podcast. And you guys keep on going. I can't wait to see where you guys take it.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much,
it,
Chris. All the best.